and welcome to this special interview. I'm very pleased today to have Robin McEwen with me, who's going to help us with this particular subject. We're looking at shunning today, and we'll find out more about what that is. Robin is a church worker, and he's got a lot of experience with new religious movements and high control groups. And so there's this interview we hope will be of benefit to those who may be associated with groups like this. Actually, there's a wider group, Robin, we talk about. It's not just religious groups. It can be in workplaces and even in families, and also some groups, marketing type groups, can be very controlling as well. But we're focusing particularly on religious groups here. So, Robin, over to you. Can you tell us a bit more about what shunning is, please?
Hi. Shunning comes under various names. It's practiced by pretty much all high control groups or new religious movements, and some churches too. Basically, it's cutting off somebody who leaves the group, literally cutting them off, cutting off any social contact. Some groups even treat somebody as though they were dead. They'll cross over the street to avoid them. They won't make eye contact. If you meet somebody who's being shunned in a store, you'll leave the store. It's a very brutal and inhumane practice.
Okay, and it can cause all sorts of bad psychological problems and physical problems too, I guess.
Yes, if you're in a high control group and you've been in it for a while, the chances are you've kind of dropped friendships over the years outside of the group. So your whole social support network is the group. So when you leave or you get disfellowshipped, as some groups call it, then you're completely on your own because you've just about lost all people outside of the group. And so for people who are born and brought up in the group, it could mean their whole family is turned against them. If their employers are in the group, it could mean that their livelihood is at stake. Certainly one group I'm very aware of, a new religious movement, there's a high turnover, I haven't got the exact figures, of suicide of people who are being shunned, and it's quite horrendous. And the mental effects of being shunned are bad enough, but it can come out physically as well.
Yeah, thank you. And what sort of groups would be involved in this, do you think?
High controlled new religious movements, I'm trying not to name any here, but pretty much most of what we would call new religious movements practice shunning of ex-members. Some fundamental churches do, actually, I'm sad to say.
We could actually mention a few of these groups, could we? I don't pick on just one, but there's quite a few groups, aren't there?
Okay, so Scientologists will shun. They call it what do they call it? Disconnecting. Mormons will shun if anybody leaves. My speciality is Jehovah's Witnesses. They will shun ex-members. There's always exceptions, but groups that follow the Bible that we would describe as new religious movements, loosely Christian because they follow a Bible, although their beliefs probably wouldn't fall in line with mainstream Christianity. They will use the Bible, certain passages, to justify shunning. If you really look at those passages, which we can do at another time, they are about expelling an unrepentant, persistent sinner, but they're not about shunning.
And they ignore the other aspects of good religion, of love and care and doing the best for the other person. They ignore that completely.
Yes. I mean, one question I often put to people who practice this is, if they follow the Bible, how many people did Jesus shun? And he didn't even shun those that were nailing him to a cross. And he didn't shun those that let him down. So there's no grace in it. The real reason behind shunning, and sometimes groups that aren't Bible followers will practice shunning. So as you said earlier, it keeps people in because they know the consequences if they leave or if they do something wrong and get disfellowshipped. But it's far wider than that too. Most high control groups will tell you that everything outside of the group is bad and evil and satanically led, and only good you'll find is within the group. Well, what tends to happen is when people are disfellowshipped or they come away or disassociate themselves, they find ordinary, normal people. Yeah, there's good and there's bad everywhere. So shunning stops the people in the group talking to the people who have left the group, who can tell them, you know what, it's not all bad out here. There are good people, you know. So shunning is devastating, but for a high control group, it has its use. It's a control mechanism.
Yeah, thanks. And do you have an example of this? Something you can say, tell us that an example of what happened?
Yes, I'm in contact with shunned people personally and online. So somebody I know personally was abused within the group, sexually abused, and reported his abuser to the authorities, and he is now shunned because he did that. But the abuser is still free. They never managed to get the charges to stick. So, you know, somebody who was sexually abused as a child, wanted to take their abuser, who was someone of standing within the group, he is now shunned because he did that, but his abuser is still free.
Yeah,
whereas the person, well, I think he abused others, those people carry it with them all their lives. I also know a good friend of mine, actually, who I see regularly. She actually left. I think she disassociated herself, people from her old congregation will not acknowledge her. And if she gets people from that group, she was a Jehovah's Witness, knocking on her door. She's moved around quite a bit. If she tells them she's disfellowshipped, she said, they stare at me like I'm the devil himself, and then they disappear. It's really mind-blowing.
Sounds really bad. And if this happens to you or somebody you know, what will help? What can you do? What can improve things for you?
Every case is individual, but if I run across somebody who's being shunned, whoever it is, I want to be a friend to them because of the situation they're in. And I think it's vital that you find somebody to be a friend with who can understand what you're going through. I mean, it's not happened to me, but I can begin to understand it because I know so many people who it's happened to. But we do have the advantage of the internet now. And for instance, my speciality, Jehovah's Witnesses, there is any amount of places online that you can find genuine help. And it's quite often people who have been in the same place before you. And most of them, they're not judgmental, you know, they're not fair weather friends. They understand the situation you're in and can be of help, just to help you through the trauma of this being shunned.
Okay, Robin, well, thank you very much for joining us today, and thanks for your advice and that very interesting insight into what shunning is. Thank you.
Thank you.